So hi guys. This week we're dealing with a new topic on sectarianism and how sectarian violence led to civil wars in some cases. So we're gonna focus basically on Lebanon, Iraq, and Sudan. So before going into the civil war in Lebanon and how the war actually broke out, we need to clarify what sectarianism means. So here in the context of the civil war, obviously we are dealing with kind of antagonism between different subnational identities, that actually these identities based on religion, race, ethnicity, even geographical regions. So it's kind of emotionally charged concept that um, not always, but we deal with it as it will lead to the eruption of physical violence and the construction of antagonistic lines between that distinguish between different identities, us and them, like to establish or to constitute the otherness in order to isolate or to delegitimize them. As like political scientists, or we deal with, or even from interdisciplinary perspectives, so we deal with isolation and the delegitimization from political representation and from freedom of expression and freedom of association. And sometimes it takes form of physical violence or attack on the other identity, subnational identities. But it doesn't mean it's not always some this sectarian or this feeling of belonging to subnational categories or subnational identities do not always or inevitably lead to sectarian violence or physical violence or civil war. And sometimes, it didn't take like this institutional form as we are going to see in Lebanon and in Iraq after the US occupation or invasion in 2003. But we deal in this context of the civil war and the context of Sudan and Iraq and Lebanon. So we deal how these kind of politicization of sectarian identities led to the eruption of violence and civil wars in some cases. If you remember when we talked about the PLO and how actually it was kicked out from Jordan after the Black September events, and actually it moved its base of operation, of military operation, to Lebanon. So actually it actually led to or fed into the eruption of the civil war and politicization of um, sectarian identities in Lebanon. That actually, these identities were there, as we actually dwelled on when we discussed the establishment or the state building in Lebanon and Syria, and how they reached, this confessional-based political system or the polity structure after the National Pact ratified in 1943. So the outbreak of the civil war in Lebanon was not entirely internal or domestic affairs in Lebanon. So the PLO helped out with the politicization and the accelerating the pace of the eruption of these sectarian clashes. And and besides the PLO, the the conflict actually attracted different regional players later, like Iran, to support Hezbollah and Syria, the military existence in Lebanon, by supporting the Maronites, and Israel in order to destruct the military bases of the PLO in the southern area in Lebanon. So the PLO now settled in Lebanon, and it tried to and it actually carried out or undertook these kind of military operation against Israel, and border attacks and raids, from the southern part of Lebanon against Israel. And this actually divided the Lebanese society and led to politicization of different issues that were already there before the PLO settled in Lebanon. If you remember, like we mentioned the very existence or the establishment of Zaim, or the political process in Lebanon, as like a well-established system in order to distribute material benefits that took a form of sectarian and confessional basis as well. And these like Zaim system or Zo'ama tried to insulate the country from entanglement in these regional conflicts, and they tried their best in order to isolate Lebanon from this kind of the pan-Arabism discourse and this entanglement in Nasser and conservative monarchies bloc. But it was like things went out of their hands because of the existence of the PLO, and it had like legal legal framework for its existence in Lebanon. So after the PLO moved from Jordan in order to base in Lebanon, this actually added, roughly speaking, like 300,000 Palestinian refugees to the camps that already existed in the southern part of Lebanon. And around these camps, the guerrilla groups settled in order to undertake, these military operations against Israel. So according to the legal agreement between the PLO and the Lebanese government, they agreed to turn over the mission of supervising, these refugee camps to the PLO. And in return, the PLO had to take the government approval before initiating any kind of military operation against Israel that actually like never carried out or implemented. Like usually the PLO and the guerrilla movement like launched their attacks into Israel from southern part of Lebanon, and this actually triggered Israeli retaliation and repeatedly led to a destruction of villages in the southern area, and led to the evacuation of villagers in order to they settled in areas around Beirut, and this actually triggered more dissatisfaction with the Lebanese government, because the Lebanese government now it was inefficient, or it was not effective to protect the Lebanese citizens from both like Palestinians, the PLO and guerrilla movements, and the Israeli attack. That was in the beginning. And then the Israeli forces like penetrated or invaded or got kind of breakthrough or penetration into Lebanon, and they did strike like the international airport in Beirut, and this provoked the Arab nationalists and some radical organizations that actually turned against the government this time, because it failed to deploy army against the Israeli forces, while it used these forces or the army forces against the Palestinians or the commanders in the Palestinian commanders in Lebanon. So this issue actually divided Lebanese people. Like one group sided with the radicals and the Arab nationalists, and they asked to the government to allow the Palestinian groups or the Palestinian commanders in order to give them unrestricted freedom to launch their attacks against Israel, and most of them like logically they were like Sunni Muslims, that they were already dissatisfied with the existing confessional system that was discriminated against them, and against the inefficient government, that it was not able to address their needs, socioeconomic needs, because they were immersed in a poverty situation, and they had to actually to migrate, not only because of the existence of the guerrilla groups in the southern part of Lebanon, but because of the government failed to deliver some socioeconomic demands or some social services like to modernize the irrigation system or something to help people to advance their livelihood. Um, so they were actually dissatisfied with the existing nepotistic and corrupt political system, and that's why the one of the reasons they supported um, they sided with the group that supported uh, the Palestinian groups or the Palestinian guerrilla groups, and the other group actually tried to assert the state sovereignty and its authority over the entire um, land or the entire country. And logically, they were like Christians or Maronites that they were like they benefited from the the National Pact of 1943, and they refused to because Muslims started to ask for modification and revisions of the National Pact in order to reflect the new demographic reality. Because Lebanon in 1975 or in the 70s, Lebanon was entirely different from Lebanon in 1932. That like they conducted, this census according to which or based on it, they tried to come up with the formula of the National Pact of 1943. So the Maronites or Christians, they disagreed or they rejected any kind of revisions to offer any kind of revisions or modifications to the National Pact, and to amend, this kind of to meet any demands for a fair share of political and economic pie in Lebanon. This kind of division between Muslims and Christians reorganized itself into like specific organizations or crystallized into organizational forms. If you remember Kemal Jumblat, he was like one of the like Zaim or one of the political boss that gathered Druze around him. He was like established Zaim and like advocate for political reform and social reform as well. So he managed to build a coalition between like Druze and different Muslims, and they organized themselves into the Lebanese national movement, and started to ask basically for some administrative reforms and abolishing, this confessional basis of politics, and asked for explicitly for more freedom of action of Palestinian commanders. This actually like fit into the eruption of the civil war because it triggered counter-reaction from the Maronites, and Bir Jumayl had like the Kata'ib, and then together with the former president Kamil Shamoun, who had his own like private militia as well, like the Kata'ib Phalange, they had like their paramilitary organization. With Shamoun, he had his own like private militia as well. So it was like the PLO with the Kata'ib, they actually militarized the entire Lebanese society. So the Christian militia started to attack in April 1975. They like attacked the bus with Palestinians, and they killed like 7 passengers. This actually led to the death of the round of fights between both sides, the PLO and the Maronites, that it did last for like 2 months, from April to June. And then the PLO accepted, to a ceasefire agreement until the end of this year in 1975. But it didn't put an end to this sectarian conflict, because that already like erupted between Christians and Muslims, even after the withdrawal or the acceptance of the PLO to accept or to ratify, this ceasefire agreement. So what happened, like before the end of the year, in December, the Maronites took like drastic measure by um, expelling Muslims that lived inside their own uh, quarters in the capital, and this intensified the conflict between Maronites and Muslims, and eliminated any possible compromise or any possible solution in order to reach this to revive the confessional political system, or to reach like kind of to negotiate, in order to the national pact, in order to reach a compromise. And 1 month later, in January 1976, the Lebanese front, the like the Maronites and their allies, they formed their Lebanese front, and they led siege to the large Palestinian camps. That actually it did draw back the PLO into the conflict. So they actually surrounded the Tal al-Zatar. It's a Palestinian camp, and they sieged the people, the Palestinian people inside the camp. After they were left unprotected. So this actually triggered more or like violent reaction from the army, that actually was disintegrated into its confessional component. So now, like, the state totally collapsed. The army was totally fragmented, with some officers actually defected in order to side with their own sect, and then the government, the central government, was totally absent. So it was like, recipe for like a civil war or a crisis in Lebanon during that period. So Syria tried to intervene, and actually intervened in May 1976, and Al-Assad actually took like a perplexing decision by siding with the Maronites against the PLO and Muslims. So actually, the intervention of the Syrian army or the Syrian troops complicated the situation, and it led to the more violent fights between the two camps or between the two sides. And it ended up with the intervention or the mediation of the Arab leaders in order to reach a ceasefire agreement between the combatants. And actually, they managed to reach, this kind of agreement in order to put an end to trying to put an end to the civil war, and to ask the UN to intervene or to send some forces to build like a buffer zone between the two camps. But it was actually the Arab leaders decided to have their own their own Arab forces to be stationed in Lebanon, but it was exclusively composed of Syrian troops. This actually gave the Syrian regime the upper hand, and they tried to appease the PLO by giving the organization the pre-war situation in order to be settled in the southern part of Lebanon. But again, like they didn't revise the existing national pact of 1943. That was actually the reason or the root of the eruption of the civil war. So without touching upon or without offering any kind of modification or revisions to the pact, there was always a possibility of a new round eruption of a new round of fights. So in between 1976 until 1982, the country was totally disintegrated into these kind of collections of sectarian zones or sectarian enclaves, and it was very difficult to get back to the normal situation. So any kind of like unsettled or any kind of disruption caused, any the eruption of a new round of the fight. So in 1977, a new round of like fight erupted again between militia factions after the assassination of John Blood. So the Muslims accused Maronites for the assassination, for being responsible for the assassination of John Blood, and then they decided to take revenge on his assassination. So again, like a new round of violent and armed struggle between the two camps erupted again, and dashed any kind of hope to rebuild the state or to end or to reach a compromise and end the civil war, like at some point in the 70s. So the intervention of regional forces or different political role of different regional players complicated the situation even more. So in June 1982, Israel decided to invade Lebanon and actually surrounded the capital. So obviously the main goal was destruction or to destroy the PLO in order to put an end to its attacks from the southern part of Lebanon. So the PLO actually enjoyed this kind of administrative autonomy during, or under this ineffective central government in Lebanon. And it actually, the administrative autonomy in the belt between, like if you see the map, like the belt stretched from the organization actually headquarter was located in the west of Beirut, and then like it took like this down this the coast in order to that reached south to the Israeli border, and then this led to the Israeli occupation of the southern part, the shady area, in order to act as like a buffer against the military operations of the PLO. So one goal was the destruction of, or to dismantle the PLO as an organization in Lebanon. And then the Israeli government realized that the destruction alone was not enough, because the Palestinians had like heavy presence or existence in Lebanon. So in order to offer a solution to the current problem, it was like to reestablish the political stability, or to restore political stability. And that was never, did not happen, or was never like, possible with the existence of the Syrian troops. So it actually helped again to diminish or to kick out the Syrian troops from Lebanon. And this was only allowed by reestablishing stable Lebanese government and finding like an ally within the Maronite, because they had like, this shared hatred against both Syrians and Palestinians. So they tried to reach out to Maronite factions, and they agreed with the Bashir al-Jumayl in order to reestablish the state, to help the Maronite factions or Kataib in order to reestablish or to rebuild the state in Lebanon. And Israel actually launched like a heavy military operation in Lebanon, but the PLO remained defined. So that's why it was very difficult for the Israeli troops to achieve any quick victory in Lebanon during that period. And this triggered raised like international criticism and intensified international pressures in order to evacuate forces from Lebanon. So the US and France tried to lead like multinational forces in order to evacuate to supervise the evacuation process, to evacuate the Israeli troops from Lebanon. And that was like, it had a very important like political impact on the inside Israel as well, because like people, or the like the political opposition and society started to criticize Sharon and Begin as well for taking, this unnecessary military operation, and led to the high rate of death or casualties in the Israeli forces. So this actually ended up with Sharon resigning from the government, and Begin one year later, actually he actually resigned as well and left the political life, ended his political career. But the situation is still, they didn't tackle the root cause of the problem, which was like revisions of the national pact in order to reflect the new economic and demographic reality. So Amin Jumail, the brother of Bashir al-Jumail, faced like very unstable situation. So now in Lebanon, Israeli forces evacuated, except the southern part, in order to fend off any attacks came from the PLO or guerrilla movements located or settled in the south. And he had like the existence of the again the PLO and the guerrilla movements that he was not able, or the Maronite Kataib were not able to dismantle. So he turned to Syria in order to protect like the Maronite groups. So between 19 before Amin Jumail, like Bashir Jumail actually assumed the presidency, and his assassination led to a violation of the evacuation agreement. So the Israeli troops invaded again, or like violated the evacuation agreement, and facilitated the Kataib to pave the way for Kataib to get into the Palestinian refugee camps in Sabra and Shatila, and they massacred roughly like 1,000 men and women. And this actually led to increasing the international criticism and divisions inside Israel, that eventually led to put an end to a political career of Begin, and resignation of the Minister of Defense, Sharon. So and this eventually led to a very protracted evacuation that took like 2 years, from 83 to 85. And then Amin Jumail took over, or like assumed power, and he tried to re-establish the relationship with Syria in order to entrench or to consolidate his position. So it's like never-ending process of cycles of violence remained there, and it was like mutually destructive battles between the both camps. And during that period, like Shia started to have their own, or to develop, or to be conscious of their own sectarian identity as like a different sect from Sunni. And then Hezbollah tried to capitalize on this in order to achieve some political goals. So the existence of the Israeli troops in the south gave like a very good reason for Hezbollah to legitimize its position in order to launch or to undertake some military operations against Israel that occupied the southern zone. And again, the central and eastern areas were like occupied by the Syrian troops, or they were under the control of the Syrian military forces. And then Hezbollah started to establish its own like political position by reaching out to Iran and having calls for establishing an Islamic state in Lebanon. So the Hezbollah actually, with this very hierarchical organizational structure, tried to replicate the pattern of governance or the style of governance of the Islamic Republic in Iran in order to transplant it into Lebanon. So throughout the 80s, it was very difficult to get political leaders together in order to negotiate or to reach a compromise and put an end to this brutal and violent civil war. And eventually, some political leaders from the last parliament of 1972 decided, together with other representatives for both for those who died, they gathered in Saudi Arabia in order to reach a national reconciliation and to offer a solution to the root cause of the civil war in Lebanon, in order to revise again the national pact, in order to establish a new system of a new confessional system that reflected the new demographic reality in Lebanon during that period. And they actually managed to reach an agreement in 1989. And it actually recognized, the new agreement recognized the demographic changes in Lebanon by actually diminishing the authority of the president, the Maronite president, in order to offer more prerogatives and authorities to the Sunni prime minister. And it actually changed the second feature was changing the religious representation in the parliament. The ratio was 6-5 in favor of the Maronites. Now it offered an equal number of seats to both sides, Maronites and Christians, by adding or introducing a new nine seats, 3 for Shia and 6 for Sunni. So it was kind of it vigorously reaffirmed, this confessionalism in Lebanon, rather than eradicating, this confessional basis of political dynamics. So 1 year before, or a few months before the ratification of the Ta'if agreement, before leaving the government, I think Amin Jumail tried to nominate Michel Aoun as the prime minister of the government, and Salim al-Hos was actually claimed that his cabinet constituted the legitimate government in Lebanon. And both tried to compete, with each other in order to claim legitimacy, the legitimate government to govern Lebanon. And then they had to abide by the Taif agreement after they both, different representatives of both camps agreed to ratify the agreement. So 1 year, a few months after the ratification of the agreement, because the agreement didn't offer a solution to the Syrian presence in Lebanon. So still, although the agreement stipulated that the Lebanese government had the right to exert full authority over the entire country, it actually asked the Syrian military or the Syrian troops to assist or to facilitate, this mission, to help the government with the establishing or re-establishing its authority or its sovereignty over the Lebanese territories, and to ask the militia to surrender or to lay down their heavy weapons and to disband. So the Syrian army or the Syrian troops had to facilitate the mission for the Lebanese government. So effectively, it offered the upper hand, or it gave some position to the Syrian government or the Syrian troops to exist in Lebanon. So Michel Aoun actually, out of the claims of patriotism, tried to mobilize masses from both Maronites and from Christians and Muslims, in order to reorganize themselves to pressure the Syrian government to withdraw from Lebanon. And he actually tried that in the beginning, and he gained wide mass support. And then like the violent reaction and the high numbers or the heavy casualties, and his like he didn't care about the number of casualties, and his like reckless attitudes toward the damages and the destructive effect of his political goal led to some retreat from the masses or from popular masses against Michel Aoun. And then the Syrian troops capitalized on the opportunity of the second Gulf War. So everyone was busy with Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait and tried to liberate Kuwait. So he launched an all-out attack on the own positions in Lebanon that pushed him or obliged him to seek refuge in the French embassy in Lebanon and put an end to his attempt to pressure the Syrian regime to withdraw its troops from Lebanon. Things changed with the Ilyas al-Harawi government, and he developed this pro-Syrian attitude. He had like pro-Syrian government. This stabilized the relationship between Lebanon and the Syrian regime for a little while. But still, the existence of the Israeli troops or the occupation of the southern part triggered, Hezbollah militia that refused to surrender or to lay down their weapons, and actually they had their own discourse that attracted, some supporters because they claimed kind of religious authority of Ayatollah, and tried to and these kind of ruling, it was like binding, and it was not like the supporters were not able to contest, and they called for the establishment of the Islamic political system in Lebanon, and they had their own like ideological orientation or ideological approach to carry out military attacks against Israel. But by like participating in these efforts of rebuilding or reconstructing the Lebanese state and engaging in the electoral process, so they adapted, some of their strategic goals in order to participate in the political process or to have like a position in the existing political system. So the turning point that led to the withdrawal of the Syrian troops was the assassination of Rafiq al-Hariri in 2005. Like they accused, like Lebanese people accused the Syrian troops of committing, this assassination, and 3 months, like from February till April, Lebanese groups or like white masses committed violent acts against Syrians and against some like Syrian workers or targets, Syrian targets in Lebanon, that led eventually to the withdrawal of the troops in April 2005. Another important case in the Middle East that actually portrayed as especially after 2003, it was portrayed as like one important case to investigate or to examine politicization of sectarianism, especially after the occupation changed the political composition of the sectarian composition of the ruling elite, with establishing, the Shia as the dominant ruling elite in Iraq, and put like the occupation put an end to the dominance of the Sunni that marked, the political life in Iraq, as we mentioned in the when we talked about the process of state building in Iraq. So again, like When we talk about sectarianism in Iraq and the rise of Shia as a dominant political class, so people usually refer to sectarianism and it's like ultimate manifestation of physical violent or violent confrontation between different subnational identities, basically here Sunni and Shia, and then the institutionalization of these sectarian politics by like establishing like a representative system that favored Shia and discriminated against Sunni. So in order to see to what extent this statement like historically correct in especially in the Iraqi context, we have to cast a light to the sectarian politics before the invasion or before 2003. So it had like totally different boundaries because we stopped at late 19 like 69, and then when Saddam Hussein like was kind of a second man during the 70s, and he was responsible for entrenching or consolidating the power of the Ba'ath Party by creating some organizational branches and establishing kind of ideological um, like committees in order to purge the the political life or to purge Iraq of the any kind of rival political opposition. So he eventually reached power in 19 officially. Like he was like a very efficient or influential political figure, and he actually became like the first man in 19 by assuming power in 1979. So during the 70s, while Ba'ath Party established its dominant and hegemonic power in Iraq, so we tried to see how sectarian politics took shape or looked like. So it had like totally we had like Shia and Sunni and Kurds as well. But what the Ba'ath Party tried to develop during that period, the political leadership tried to establish like this like coherent national identity that actually didn't allow for any duality or any dual identity. So there was no place for Sunni, Shia, or Kurds, although like especially Kurds, they asked for, they had been asking for political and cultural autonomy. But during like these kind of processes of reformulating the national identities and rebuilding the nation state, despite the highly repressive regime, the Ba'ath Party managed to depoliticize ethnic and tribal identities, and the oil actually helped with this by distributing some material benefits, and in order to get people embedded into this patronage network or structure. So the oil actually didn't like these kind of material benefits were distributed uh, amongst Shia and Muslim alike. So that's why it was like no space for sectarian politics to surface. And logically, like Sunni didn't have any active sectarian identity. They were like the dominant political class, so they didn't have any kind of awareness or active sectarian identity. They took it for granted, so it came after the invasion when they faced like Kurds and Shia, and they became the dominant political class, and actually the Sunnis started to re-establish their sectarian identity or to politicize their sectarian identity. So it didn't take like any kind of like this kind of national identity or even like repressive policies. Didn't take any form of anti-Kurdish or anti-Shia policies, but like where the idea came from, it was like those who were like close or they developed like close ties to Saddam. Many of them, it happened to be Sunni Arabs, from his like Tigreti identity, his regional basis. So actually, the claim of Sunni basis came from like actually regional different the regional identity of Saddam and his allies. Um, but like oil benefits and largesse, extended equally to all needy like Shia areas and to Kurds as well, like in order to get co-opted into the Ba'ath Party or into the Ba'ath system. So the incorporation, of these wide segments of citizens or masses into the Ba'ath extensive welfare network, it helped to depoliticize, these sectarian identities for a little while. Um, so we are not saying like we don't have like more we don't have like information about Iraq during that period. The only like we have like few studies, and one book like tried to cover this area or the repressive politics under Saddam was like Blade's. She made use of the archives that were available in order to have like a new account on Iraqi politics during that period. So it was not clear whether or not the Ba'ath Party took these kind of actions for ideological reason or for tactical reason. But the outcome was the same. It was like depoliticization of these sectarian identities, regardless of like the Ba'ath Party did that out of ideological belief or tactical reason in order to co-opt these sects or Shia and Kurdish people into its own welfare network or structure in order to depoliticize them. So this kind of patronage network and nepotistic structure, it didn't take any kind of sectarian shape or sectarian framework. It didn't have this sectarian framework, and the regime tried to co-opt the Kurdish leader as well in order to suppress any kind of cultural and political demands for cultural and political autonomy. But it was like kind of mismanagement of this communal pluralism, because the country or the Ba'ath Party, while tried to establish or to reformulate or to cultivate this national identity, tried to impose kind of homogenization and Arabization by allowing for this intermarriage between Kurds and Arabs, and asking like Saddam asking people explicitly, Kurdish people, in order to define themselves as Iraqi people regardless of like the language. So it was like kind of tried to incorporate or to assimilate the Kurdish people or the Kurdish population into the majority of the Arab population. It happened, or it helped for some time, and according to like the available studies, because of this like generous welfare system or welfare network that the Ba'ath Party actually maintained for some time. But for Shia, it was like the Shia identity. It was very difficult. It was there, and it was not salient, but it was very difficult to eradicate or to eliminate, because some Shia like they did exist in different like forms or different organizational forms and different professions. So some religious elites, they had their own establishment. Some urban merchants, actually, they defined themselves, or they belonged to Shia, but it was not that salient. And some artists and some tribal communities as well. So like the identity was there, but it was not like that. It was not politicized. And even after the eruption of different Shia protests, the vast majority of the Shia population didn't participate in any contentious or in protest actions against the regime, out of fear of repression on the one hand, or out of like fear of being deprived of the material benefits or of the patronage network of the Ba'ath Party on the other hand. But it didn't mean like some like co-opting Kurdish people and like it's not suppressing, but like depoliticizing, Shia identity, and like framing, or subsuming, the Shia identity into, this national identity. It didn't mean like this kind of Shia and vocal opposition did not exist. So some some like oppositional voices, they did exist, but these voices were limited in scope. So the most important groups were communist and some Shia like organized party called Dawa Islamist Party. And this party, like they had like some opposition, some vocal or some challenging voices against the Ba'ath Party or against Saddam. And they actually organized some uprisings or some protest actions in 1974, 1977. But the Ba'ath Party and Saddam managed to brutally to crack down or to put down the uprising. But again, like the like even Shia opposition in exile, they tried to get some Shia supporters or they didn't have any social base in Iraq during that period, and the vast majority of the population um, didn't engage or participate in the protests or the uprisings against Saddam, and Saddam actually cracked down or put down the uprising. And then communists, in the beginning they had like this collaboration between with the Ba'ath, like communists and Ba'athists. They tried to collaborate because they had like the same ideological orientation regarding redistribution and socioeconomic policies. So that's why the Communist Party tried to assert its independent and autonomous status from the Ba'ath Party. So that's, and the Ba'ath Party or the Ba'ath leaders needed to get communists co-opted because they perceived them as potential political rivals. So they needed to assimilate, to incorporate them or to integrate them into the Ba'ath Party, and they refused. So that's why the only site in order to advance like the political career was like through the Ba'ath Party. So when communists refused to join the party, so the Ba'ath Party or the Ba'ath leadership decided to suppress communists, although they agreed to participate in the National Patriotic Front in the early 70s. And then the Ba'ath Party turned against them um, because they, again, they competed for the same electoral constituencies or social basis. So that's why the Ba'ath Party had to eliminate, any potential threat came from the communists. So it was like the regime tried to suppress and punish what was perceived as suspected opposition, no matter to what sect they belonged to, or from like regardless of their social classes. So the regime actually suppressed like well-off merchants and intellectuals and even like workers and communists and students that refused to conform to the Ba'athist ideological line. Um, One important turning point happened with the first Gulf War, the Iraq-Iran War, that actually did last for 8 years, throughout from early 80s from until the end of the 80s. And the like the spark came with an Iraqi from Iranian origins, tried to assassinate the deputy prime minister in Iraq. And then Saddam replied by executing a Shia cleric, Bakr al-Sadr, and his sister, and tried to renew claims in Kazakhstan as like a region with large Arab populations, out of belief that it was like 1 year or more, like 1 year after the Islamic Revolution. So he made like Saddam made fatal calculation in 1980 that like having like claims in Iranian territory, and he could achieve a quick victory over a newcomer to political system. They tried, Ayatollah and the religious establishment tried to sort out differences with different ideological forces. So he thought like he could achieve, a quick and easy victory over Iranian regime, tried to consolidate its power after the Islamic Revolution. But actually, he did, like, obviously it turned out into like it turned out like a war of attrition, um, and it did last for 8 years, and it had a very devastating economic impact on Iran, on Iraq as well, and the regime was not able to sustain, its patronage network in order to distribute material benefits to the wide segment of population. So at the beginning, like this kind of social cleavages did exist, but again, the regime tried to dilute, this kind of social cleavages and sectarian conflict or sectarian cleavages between Kurds, Arabs, Sunni, and Shia by advancing like an official discourse of national identity. And the regime managed to attract, Shia and Kurds in order to fight with the Iraqi army against Iranian troops. So until, that point, it didn't have like any official existence, of Shia as like a different or distinct identity in the country. And actually, some of them, like they proved or assured, their patriotism by siding with the Iraqi military or the Iraqi army against the Iranian forces. And again, the regime tried to cultivate, these nationalist sentiments amongst Kurds and Arabs, and tried to re-establish the identity lines or this line of like belonging between the Arab Muslims and the Iranian virgin population in order to create, this image, or to cultivate, this image of otherness, like in order to establish, this antagonistic line between us and them. And it, like, the propaganda and the political propaganda and the campaign actually managed to did that, and tried to remind the Shia about their, if you remember, like they participated in the uprisings they participated in this anti-colonial struggle against the British existence in Iraq, and they led, the uprisings against the British authority. So the regime or the Ba'ath Party tried to re-establish, this historical narrative of the struggle against colonialism by framing explicitly the role of the Shia clerics and the Shia people in the struggle, and tried to offer, some more respect to Shia places, and to recognize even their official holidays, like Ashura, for example. So the regime tried to assure, the loyalty of the Kurdish people and the Shia groups in Iraq, and it managed. But actually, the devastating or the economic repercussions of the war affected the socioeconomic status, especially amongst Shia population, and this mismanagement by focusing heavily on the language, on the Arab language, and trying to integrate, the Kurdish people into, or to integrate them into the Arab population. It actually fired back, and they tried to assert their distinct, or they tried to ask for more cultural autonomy from the Arab population, and they got engaged in some uprisings, as we are going to see, and then achieved their autonomy in the early 90s, in 1991. So after, like, the situation even got even worse after the intervention or the occupation of Kuwait, the outbreak of the second Gulf War. Because like he made again like miscalculations, because he expected some support, financial support from the Gulf countries, and when they refused to forgive like some debts, or like to support him financially in order to recover, to help him with the economic recovery after the war, he actually made again like unplanned move by invading Kuwait. So it added more like financial difficulties, or financial constraint, that actually led to the eruption of uprisings that took like um, some sectarian shape in the southern part of Iraq in March 1991. So these kind of not only officers from the army, but actually it was like a disorganized popular protest that actually erupted sporadically um, during that period. And these disorganized protests actually tried to attack like members of the Ba'ath Party and some Ba'ath Party headquarters in cities that happened to be populated largely by Shia people. And soon after, like the uprisings did spread to major Shia cities. And again, the majority of the Shia population refused to participate in the uprisings. And after that, like the Kurdish rebellion happened in the north, and then the regime actually tried to brutally suppress these uprisings. The regime actually didn't have, at this point, it didn't have like high quality intelligence, so that's why he like Saddam Hussein and the Ba'ath Party committed this kind of collective punishment. Again, it did like heighten the sectarian identity, but he didn't like, he targeted at like the like people who like he suspected that they participated in these kind of protests or these contentious actions against the Ba'ath regime or against like the government. But it became like obvious that Shia became like target of the regime. So that's why it did develop this sense of they had like a common fate. So that's why it heightened this sectarian identity amongst the Shia people, and the same for Kurdish people, because they were like the main target of the Ba'ath regime. So that's why they tried um, to assert or to reassert their subnational identity as like Kurds or as Shia. So they redefined themselves in relation to the Ba'ath regime, or the other, like Sunni or Arab Sunni. Um, the regime tried at this point, actually, the regime still, or Saddam and the Ba'ath Party, tried to re-establish its image or its legitimate position by using the same tactic of political propaganda. So, firstly, Saddam tried to promote, the image of a dedicated, like politician or public servant, and he tried to appease or to alleviate, some of the Shia fears by holding a general election, like before the uprising, like after the war. Like he tried to allocate, some seats for some reserved seats for Shia deputies, in order to maintain the stability and order, or in order to quell or to suppress, this sectarian identity, especially after like the economic difficulties and the inability of the Ba'ath Party to maintain or to sustain the welfare, the distribution of material benefits to these areas. So he continued with the same policies. At the same time, tried to target, any potential opposition from in Shia cities, or in the main cities that populated by Shia people. Um, so things like again, like the financial compensations. He tried to compensate people, that they lost, some relatives in the war, and this increased the financial constraints. And this actually, the situation got worse, after the second Gulf War, with the imposition of the embargo or the economic sanctions by the United Nations. So this actually, ironically, enabled the Ba'ath Party and Saddam to establish, to re-entrench, or to actually suppress any opposition and to re-establish their dominance over the society. So because of like mass starvation, so the government developed, this food rationing system. So the government was responsible for distributing some like basic commodities and like food stuff, to people. And because of like, they had to show kind of loyalty to the regime or to the Ba'ath Party in order to get, the quota. So they like the people who were loyal and like people who were members in the party, they were not like eligible for a larger amount of like of food or the for larger allocations, but actually they did for political reason, for but not for sectarian reason. So this actually added to this added to, or it did feed into, this kind of sectarianism, or like the appearance of sectarianism in Iraq after the Second World War. Um, Oil for food program, in order to like, to alleviate, some of the heavy impact or the economic sanction. So the international community and the UN allowed for to sell some oil in order to get some basic foods for basic food and some stuff for the population, and it actually again helped Saddam Hussein and his like allies and close politicians and politicians with close ties with him to accumulate wealth and to have like, some illegal contracts with some companies by smuggling and having like by engaging in kickbacks or something like that in order to accumulate wealth that actually led to increase the gap between like Saddam Hussein and his cronies or his close ties or allies that happened to be like politicians from Tikrit and with Sunni basis, and this like established again or re-established, the sectarian line or the helped like sectarian identities to surface. Um, so it was like unequal distribution of the cost. I kind of agree with this argument. Like the like Shia population and Sunni as well. But perhaps like the Shia area as a geographic area, they were like much more. They affected more with the devastating impact and the economic constraints after the two wars, and this political patronage that it took like non-sectarian format, but it did entrench, this sectarian image, because it happened like his close allies from his geographical region. He didn't have this in mind because of their like, because of their they didn't drive, their, or he didn't actually see them as loyal because of their like, they had same like religious they had like the same religion or religious affiliation, but because they came from the same geographical area, so they were kind of trustworthy for him because of like they came from the same region. And this actually it did to like reshape the coalition or the political basis of Saddam Hussein or the Ba'ath Party by this heavy reliance on like loyal friends or Tikriti, like class or elite circles from his own geographic region that actually fed into or fed back into the sectarian dynamics. So the situation was like, for any like sectarian identity to be salient or to be politicized, it meant that it was there to be politicized. It was not like created. So it did exist, and then it needed kind of a catalyst in order to surface, in order to redeploy it politically for different reason, and then it might, and obviously in Iraq, it was transformed into physical and violent eruption. But like after like the protests that erupted recently, some segments of the population actually rejected this like sectarian based politics, and they try to ask for or to articulate their social and economic grievances. But we don't have like we need to look into some surveys in order to see if it's a trend or it was like kind of erratic action. Um, so for Darfur and Sudan, I'm gonna have like half an hour next lecture. So I'm gonna like you're gonna have like I'm gonna record this half an hour in order to cover Sudan and the like religious and other like regional or geographical dimensions of the eruption of the civil war. And then you will have like your simulation model that it will last for 45 minutes, and I'll cover like the ISIS and جبهة النصرة and الجيش الحر in Syria while we are talking about the uprisings. So in the very last week. So if you have any question regarding the simulation model, so please feel free to email me. Bye.